What's AI going to do to BI, or is it DYI? You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey everyone, happy Thursday. You know what, I just heard a beep. Can we start over? You heard that beep too?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, here we go. A block in 3, 2.
Hi everyone, it's happy Thursday. Alan Schimmel, happy Thursday and happy to be here today. Welcome to Techstrong Gang. You know, it's not often we get visitors down here in Boca Raton. Well, we get a lot of visitors down here in Boca Raton. Who am I kidding? This time of year, I can't wait for them to go home. But it's not often we get visitors here to our Techstrong studio, and I'm really tickled to have Guy Currier, who's a gang member. You've seen him on here before, but usually he's in Austin, Texas, or gallivanting somewhere in the world. Today, he's gallivanted down to Boca, and he's here with us. So first of all, Guy, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here in person.
In person, on the show.
Techstrong Studios.
So we're having some fun down here, but as usual, we have our gang's kind of concentrated today. We've got 2 in Boca and 2 in Colorado. So let's go to our Colorado contingent. I don't know which one of you is at a higher elevation. I don't even want to guess. Camberly, because she's near Boulder, right? Boulder's higher than Mitch, closer to the airport. So Camberly Bates, Futurum analyst, always a bona fide gang member here. Hey, Camberly, how are you?
Good morning from, we're 70 degrees, just like you guys there in Boca Raton today.
Good.
It's the same temperature all over the United States.
Yeah, it's being controlled. Did you ever see that show Paradise?
Yeah.
They control the temperature inside the mountain. It's a great show if you've ever, Mitch, have you seen that one?
I've started watching it.
That's a great series. Anyway, speaking of Mitch, also in Colorado, but was it northeast Denver?
I'm coming to you from the lowlands of the Front Range of Colorado. How's that?
All right. The low ends of the Front Range.
Where the buffalo roam.
They still roam? I thought the Buffs are all at UC Boulder now.
It's pretty much just cattle.
Or CU Boulder. That's just cattle. Anyway, future VP analyst Mitchell Ashley. Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Good.
Good. And then he's all by himself in the Empire State, still camped outside Yankee Stadium waiting for opening day. He's our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. 5 hours from now, I will be sitting in the upper decks behind home plate at Yankee Stadium, assuming my usual position. And now's a good time for me to tell you that I won't be making that 3 o'clock meeting with you today.
Yeah, probably not. Well, you know what? When we looked at the baseball schedule this year, we kind of deleted you from any meetings. So we knew where you were going to go or be. Max Fried's opening, right? Or no?
I don't know who's opening. I got to go look. I thought it was Rodon.
It might be Rodon. You're right. It's Carlos Rodon. It's not Max Fried. Well,
So little known fact, we don't open here in Denver until April because it's snow.
Well, that's prudent, but who knew it was going to be 70 degrees? But again, that's the weather in Colorado, right? Never know what to expect. Anyway, hey, let's jump in. I mentioned it before, AI transforming BI, DYI. What are we doing with all these eyes? Mike, what do we got here?
All right, well, stay with me on this one, but AWS has this BI application service called Q Insight, and they added some AI capabilities to that late last year, and now yesterday or the day before, they added the ability to create what-if scenarios. So rather than necessarily you having to upload all this stuff and find some business analyst to go and code all that stuff, you could do it yourself. Of course, business analysts might use this to lighten their own load. But the interesting part of it to me is you can interactively do analysis by just changing a couple of parameters in a spreadsheet or whatever data you uploaded. And you don't necessarily need a business analyst to go all do this. And you can think about how I can model different things, or I could change the the discounts that we're going to set and see what the impact that might have on the profit and loss statement. And it just gives people a lot more control over planning. But Guy, I know you've been in this space a long time, and I know also we've had what if capabilities in other BI apps. I think we're just kind of getting to the point now where maybe we can democratize this.
We definitely are democratizing it. It always amuses me to hear how you can cut the professional out, in this case, the business analyst, and everything's going to go just fine. I do think that it allows for the business analyst to be a lot more productive. There are a lot of, you might not call them rote exactly, but let's say repetitive but highly skilled functions that business analysts have to do. It's not just, maintaining, the analytics and the dashboards and the pipeline of information and reports that they're constantly producing while handling the host of custom requests. There's a lot of elements of that are repetitive. They create templates, they have notes, they have process sheets. There's lots of ways that they have had to accomplish this in the past. And like a lot of promising areas, the most promising and the most encouraging areas of AI, where you can turn to AI to do this, it never gets tired, it's always quick. The more it does it, the better it gets at it. The more productive those business analysts will be. Can the developers and the data scientists create interactive systems where, just like, let's say, in the platform engineering world, instead of the developers, it's end users, business users are interacting with the platform and they don't have to deal with pesky people as much who are still behind the scenes keeping things going? Yeah, I think that's where it's going. But talking about cutting out the business analyst, I think misses the point of democratization, which is, so Q came out, I think, in 2020 or something like that. And it was a sort of a precursor that was common in business analytics and business intelligence of being able to do natural language queries where you could enter in plain language what it was you wanted to look at, and the system knew how to produce charts close to or at what you wanted to do. Now, AI helps take that to the next level and add additional functionality and capabilities that the business analysts can take advantage of, as well as the developers. And that is what is going to create this sort of democratization, I think, that you refer to. But no, we're not cutting out the business analyst. I worked in research years ago. That's actually when you and I met. And it always amused me how folks we were doing surveys for thought they could write the surveys without the use of a professional. You can't really do this properly without the use of the professionals still.
Mm-hmm. I think the key word there was properly.
Properly. Yes, thank you. Should have just said properly, and we would have all saved a lot of time.
One of the things I do like about this, though, is that they are letting you watch the steps that are used to create the outcome. And
observability, observability and auditability. Yeah, go on.
One of the issues I've always had with business analysts is, they're like human black boxes. I don't really know what went into their output that they created, so I don't know whether I'm going to trust it or not. And so there's always this question that people have. It's like, so here comes the report from the business analyst, and we don't know what went into weighting that. And so we're always kind of like, when the outcome doesn't kind of align with what our hopes were, we always get a little suspicious.
But there's the other piece, the other issue that goes along with this piece of it, in terms of, like, let's talk about a financial analyst that's doing the business analytics. And so often we have systems that don't match. I mean, we've all been in companies, big companies especially. Somebody walks in with the truth piece, somebody else walks in with the truth piece, and they don't match up. And so you're asking, well, why, if he's asking the same question and getting different answers because different systems have different numbers, then can I ask the AI to kind of resolve about why these numbers are different? That might be beneficial to me, or kind of guess.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'd have to ask a third AI agent to go do that, to check the work of the other two, right?
Well, in for a penny, in for a pound, I guess.
So Alan, the point of this whole exercise is allegedly so business executives will make more quote unquote fact-based decisions versus intuitive decisions that might be based on their experience or what they had for lunch because they have a case of indigestion. So do you think that we will get more fact-based decisions that are better, or is there always going to be some level of intuition involved?
So I probably have an unorthodox view on this. I think quite frankly, a lot of executives use these types of business intelligence research to reinforce their gut feeling, right? And they tend to discount things that don't reinforce. And it's, quite frankly, it's a lot of what goes on in our country today, right? We tend to read news that reinforces our tribal beliefs, and tend to shun news sources that don't reinforce those beliefs. And I think that happens with analysts too, right? I want and to be fair, I think that when the analysts, and I'm not impinging the integrity of analysts, guys, so, and Mitch and so forth, and Camp, but I think the analyst sometimes gets their cues from the customer about what the end result we'd like to see, or what our beliefs are, prove me wrong or reinforce it. And so I always cast a suspicious eye at these things because, is the outcome baked beforehand?
Well,
Right.
so
And maybe AI will stop.
yeah, does this change corporate culture or institutional culture where politics and lines of power and that sort of thing, like you referred to two different elements of this, and I didn't do whatever they call social engineering or whatever it is in B school. But there's two different elements here. One is the researcher or analyst understanding that the mission is to help support a decision that's already been made or a point of view, and for political or whatever reasons, helping out with that effort as opposed to exposing the, quote unquote truth. And then the other one is how decisions are made at all in the first place, which seem often to be based on last week's meeting that was really important, where something happened and the executive or person in power had an insight and brought that out, and then they're picking and choosing among a lot of facts the ones that support their case. Those could be affected in some way that is a little hard to see by the advent of AI, but they'll still be there. As long as corporations are made of people and not of AI agents, and who knows, maybe when artificial general intelligence comes along, it'll be replaced by a different set of politics and forces. So,
Well, I think this means that natural language is the new SQL. We don't need every person to have to know SQL, just like we don't need every person to know how
very
to
good
program
point, including the
SAP
analysts. Yeah.
to get, yeah. But this is the outer layer of what data analysts do, right? Getting the information out of the systems is one part of it, but there's building models, there's aggregating data, there's doing analysis, so you can give answers. Not executives are not going to go out there and build complicated, sophisticated models. That's what data engineers are about. Maybe the business analysts are now more data engineers, and requirements have kind of shifted of what they need to do, so they can produce it in whatever form. Here's our traditional reports. Here's the things that feed into the general ledger. Here's things that feed into business analytics for executives or product managers or whatever it might be. It's the accessibility to that information that's now through natural language, and it'll go deeper and deeper. But it's kind of like Mike going to the Yankees game does not make a Yankees game. There still has to be a Yankees game that happens that he can watch.
Well, not if you listen to Mike. But Mitch, let me ask you a question. Where do the data scientists fit into this one?
Well, data scientists, data engineers, a lot of people are arguing data engineer job is now an AI data engineer. They're crossing the lines into it. And this is a perfect example of that, where it isn't just about building the models. Where there's for machine learning requires more curation of data to be able to get the kind of reliable answers that you want out of it. Generative AI, less so, because now you're asking questions of it, producing results. I can remember doing banking reports, right? And whenever somebody would ask for new reports in one of the departments, inevitably I'd get a call and say, why does my number not equals Alan's number over in the credit department? What's up with this report? Well, they both say balance, but they're two different things, right? So there's the meaning and the structure and the context of the data that is what really has to happen to not only build the models, but also the AI that's going to serve it.
I'm wondering if, as we go down this path here, the principle of 5 whys becomes really, really, really more critical than it has been in terms of why are we saying this? Why are we saying this? Why are we saying this? To bring that critical thinking back into the data that we have presented to us, and making sure that we're not, looking at it in the wrong way.
There's transformation of data, right? Account means something else than it does in this system, right? So you have to do all that translation, transformation of data, data management. There's still a ton of work to do. So business analysts may not have to program SQL anymore, but they still need to make sure that whether it's an executive writing a simple query or someone doing a more sophisticated query, extracting that data out of the interface and putting into their spreadsheet, that they're getting the right data.
This is
So,
an
Guy, I know you've been banging on this drum for as long as I can remember, but are you hopeful that as we kind of look at all this AI capability and we're not dependent upon SQL, that maybe, just maybe, we might have increased data literacy among our executives?
no.
That was a
Definitively.
very Guy answer to the question. No.
What would cause data literacy? I mean, in what way would you tell us, Alan? Hey, what elevates someone to the executive mantle, VP or whatever, based on data literacy? I think talking the talk, understanding, showing results, and showing how we knew how to leverage AI and use it to get these amazing results. Sure, I think that will help, but by my gesticulations, you can see that it's a lot about what it was always about: politics, salespersonship, ability to motivate people, that sort of thing. So I do think this is a really interesting area to look at the effect of AI because it is so pervasive. I mean, think about it. A lot of BIBA's work has been based on predictive analytics, which is being really changed by a lot of different AI models, accelerated. You get a lot more possible models to look at to begin with, a lot more lines of inquiry thanks to AI. And so you're a lot more likely to come up with, through human intervention, to the intervention of the analyst, with what are promising paths or what are good and correct, like truths, possible truths. To Camberly's point, there can be more than one. But that also, its pervasiveness means that our attention needs to be a lot higher all along the way, it seems to me. One of the great things that business analysts do, and this touches on what Mitch was talking about, they kind of smell, they can kind of tell when there's something funny in the results that they're getting, and they can go back into, make demands back on the data side to say, hey, do we have a complete set? Do we have a clean set? There's something weird here. And I think it's a really interesting potential problem that with the intervention of AI, which is trained to look true whether it is or not, that might be more difficult, and that might raise the literacy level of the whole enterprise. But of executives, no.
Well,
I don't think so anyway.
let me wrap a bow on this. And Mike, note to self here, you don't pull up, the death of analysts when we have 3 analysts, people on the panel. I don't know what you were expecting.
We know people in New York too, Mike.
But
I just wanted to see who was going to jump on that grenade.
all right. But that being said, look, I do think this is a use case where AI can add real value. I don't think it's going to be the end of analyst or business or BI, an analyst. I think the better analysts will learn to leverage AI, just like better programmers will learn to leverage AI, better marketers will learn to leverage AI, right? Let's not, the sky's not falling in the end of the analyst space. But let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about AI meets platform engineering. Is platform engineering dead?
No.
All right, you're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group. the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back and we have an article over on platformengineering.com that I encourage you to check out. It talks about how AI agents will be applied to platform engineering. I'm not entirely clear this means the end of platform engineering as much maybe it just means that everybody can do it. But Mitch, you've been following AI, platform engineering, DevOps, GitOps, and every other form of ops that I can possibly remember. What is your assessment here of how AI agents might be applied to platform engineering?
Well, it's interesting, Mike. We just launched the new data set for DevOps and application development practice in Futurum's analyst business. And it was very close. Actually, platform engineering teams said that they use AI in their work, just actually a couple of percentage points more than developers. People doing DevOps and developers did, which I was pretty surprised about. Now, that could be anywhere on the spectrum. This article is a great example of that, where they were essentially kind of doing some user testing, developers saying, okay, show us how you use this now that we've got some generative AI to do searching and explanations, some automation to build environments. And they actually went through a whole scenario and said, well, this is really cool. It's amazing. The developers are doing more with this than we even thought they might do. Shocking. That's what developers do. But I think what it goes to is kind of what we were talking about in our last segment. The approachability and the access to this is changing. It's not a wiki anymore, or the tools on the rack on the tool shelf, and you have to go kind of pick what I do and go searching for documentation. They actually use some metrics to look at, like, how much time did it take them to complete the task? How long did they have to go looking up documentation, reading how to do it? How long did it take to set up all that kind of thing? Compared it with and without AI. And some areas, they say a lot of improvement. It was about a 30% improvement in just the overall task on a couple of things, but documentation was substantial. Cutting that, they don't have to do a lot of reading. They could query it. So again, it's making the tools that platform engineering is putting together, the platforms, the configurations, containers, environments, all of that stuff more accessible, as opposed to every time we do something, the wiki gets harder and harder to find things because it gets more complex and filled with stuff.
So did I hear Mitchell say platform engineers are somewhere on the spectrum? That explains a lot.
Aren't we all, Alan?
Yeah.
Speak for yourself. I'll raise my hand.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
So, Mitch, how hard is it to set this up in your mind at this point? Because, when I was looking at the article, there were a lot of coding examples, and it still didn't feel to me like it was turnkey, but they were talking more about there'd be self-service capabilities and the IDP that I can invoke through the AI agent. But where are we on the journey?
I think we're in this constant thread of improving and automating, and because your end users here are people who develop software, right? Who will develop their own tools, if they don't get what they want from somewhere else. So I think that the platform engineers can look at this as an opportunity to not only create things for developers that use AI to make it easier to get those kind of tasks done, but also see what developers do with it, right? Incorporate stuff that they may build something with agents to help their individual work, or something on their team that can be rolled back into what platform engineers provide to the rest of the organization. So I think we'll see this, ongoing, pretty rapidly moving incremental process of more and more AI driving or facilitating the tasks that developers are performing, test engineers are performing, DevOps people, operations coming off of, the work of the platform engineers, but maybe more largely the whole community contributing that back.
So Mitch, question I have for you is how are you separating out platform engineering for IT operations and AI ops? Because, there's quite a bit of engineering going in by the vendors into developing AI operations that have to do with the infrastructure pieces of it. And I'm not as up to speed on the DevOps thing. That's not my area of expertise, but kind of where do you see one of those ending and the other beginning, and how does this reflect into the kind of things that you were just talking about?
Well, your question is perfectly positioned because the line is very blurry and is getting blurrier all the time. AI ops is a general definition is using AI in operations for whatever process. Data ops, same kind of thing. And as we move, in a good GitOps sense, we were talking about earlier that Mike mentioned, that's things flowing all the way from development to test into production environments and supporting it in a production environment. So I can very easily see, the tools that we want to use in production, like observability, we're pushing back up and we want to use more of that in development. Vice versa. The things that we want to be able to do observability in production, we can facilitate better by what we incorporate into our workflows and AI to do, triage and analysis of telemetry data, just to pick one example. Up and down the chain. I'm not saying it's all going to be one continuous fluid thing and you can't tell the difference between anything, but I think there's a lot of dots that can be connected across that full life cycle.
Yeah, and from my perspective, the infrastructure side of the house, one of the things we saw attempting to happen, I think maybe it is a little bit, is pushing down things like data protection, for this application, or security protocols for this application to the DevOps people. And then we started sliding it back into saying the DevOps people don't really want to do anything with this. It's another task to do that they don't want to be responsible for. They want to just, develop. And so then you have this concept of moving from a dev operational environment to the platform engineering. So that's kind of what I, kind of looking at is that you're talking about once you deploy, now you really have to address the security, data protection, the governance issues. So,
well, we talk about, developers being the customer for platform engineering. It's really a lot more than, right? It's data engineers, it's operations, because they use the platforms, right? That platform engineering is creating. So they're kind of being like DevOps was in the middle of the development flow, right? All the way to the deployment. Platform engineering is in the middle of the flow, upstream, downstream. And then
that's right. Yeah.
I think you got to go back to what gave rise to this platform engineering movement that we see today. For those who aren't aware, watching the gang today, our newest site is platformengineering.com, and we have a thing or two on there about this, including the article that gave rise to this. We also have a podcast called The Platform Engineering Show that I co-host with Luca Galante. Luca is the person behind, one of the main people behind the DevOpsEngineering.org site, which is 300,000 people strong. Where did platform engineering came from? Well, as part of that DevOps movement, this whole concept of shift left came into being, and we're just going to shift left. We're going to shift security left. We're going to shift testing left. We're going to shift deployment left. We're going to shift integration left. We're going to shift building the very platform that developers develop on left. And so it's okay if you're at a small startup with 10 or a dozen developers, but when you get to a large enterprise where you've got thousands of people involved here, it gets messy quickly. And I think a lesson we've learned in the DevOps movement over the last 10, 12 years is that we can't just shift everything left onto the developer. The developer is probably the highest paid person in that food chain. And you know what developers like to do? Develop. And so when we ask them to be security pros, when we ask them to be testers, when we ask them to be platform people, when we ask them to be ops people, you're taking away from what they do in dev. And so platform engineering is an outgrowth of this. And the idea here is, let's give the developer the platform that they need to go as fast as they can in a secure manner, guardrails, all of that good stuff, right? And so that's the mission of platform engineering. Now, how can AI help with that? I don't think yes, Mitch, you're right. Everyone will use AI up and down this food chain. right? But there's no reason that the platform engineers aren't using AI to develop better platforms. And part of that I envision, and I'm going to explore this on a future platform engineering show. Plug, we'll be at KubeCon Live recording some of these. Mitch, you'll be there. Hopefully you jump in on this. Is these platform engineers should be creating agents for their platforms that the developers can use to make their life easier for the testers and for the security people, right? These platform engineers are building the roller coaster. Let's go as fast as we can on it. Well, maybe not a roller coaster. I don't want to go up and down. But they're building the highway, right? They're building the highway, and, we want to make it an Autobahn.
Yeah, Mitch, I'd love to get your input on this because, I have this conversation and I make that description that Alan just gave, maybe a little shorter. But
was that a dig, Mike?
I see today it's Yankees baseball.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're going to be late for the first pitch.
But when I talk to IT people, I get this vibe all the time, right? It's like, have you heard of platform engineering? No. What is it? Describe it. I describe it to them. And then they look at me and they just nod their head and said, yeah, we do that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the original days of cloud. So I was a marketer, marketing cloud solutions or cloud capabilities, what have you, at a big vendor, and this was in the earlier days of cloud. And you go in the field, and customer after customer after customer would tell you, yeah, we have a cloud here, we're doing a cloud there, we're doing a cloud there, and at the time, I was like, I've never really been a purist, but I was like, look, is it on demand? Is it self-service? Is it this, that, right? We had the NIST definition and all that other kind of fun stuff. And it turned out what they had was a virtualized.
Virtualized.
Yeah, that's what they called it, a cloud.
But we went through that, Mitch. We went through this in DevOps. Mm-hmm. Nothing new in DevOps. DevSecOps, of course, it's always got security. You don't need the second there. It's.
Well, before we had DevOps, we had a sysadmin who did the build server.
Yeah.
Or we had CI/CD, right? I mean, it's an evolution of that role, just as more automation is done and
it's
expanding.
A common story.
Okay, but to Mike's point, I did a recent kind of tour through the enterprise and talking to not so much IT as enterprise, like business analyst types, IT business analyst types. Those are the folks who are delivering the IT in the way each of the business units need, whatever it might be. And I got to tell you, there's just a ton of development and compute and platforming going on out there that does not resemble what we call platform engineering right now. So in some ways, I take the parallel with cloud. They were calling it cloud back when it was virtualization, still calling it cloud, only now it is cloud. It's multi-cloud, it's hybrid cloud, it's all of these things. That is the paradigm. And so I think platform engineering, I used to say way back in the day, what we call cloud computing, now we're just going to call computing. That didn't really turn out that way, but in the same way, what we call platform engineering right now, we're just going to call the infrastructure later on.
Not ops.
No, I don't. I mean, ops. So what are platform engineers? They're coders, right? Right? Tell me I'm wrong. They're coders. They're coding the security developers, the networking developers, the integration developers, all of those folks, they're sort of coming together to take that. It's like it's still shift left, so to speak, but what they're producing is a platform for the rest of the pipeline. No? Am I oversimplifying?
It's interesting that you're calling them a coder because I see them as systems people.
Me too. I see them as ops. Sysad.
But ops is coding now. I don't know.
Well, infrastructure is code. Okay.
But it's not, because infrastructure is code, but you still got to sit on something. And that something has to do with the hardware piece of it. So
you mean eyes on glass, right? Like the people.
But going back to our previous block of AI transforming BI, and we said, executives sort of have their predefined motions. It's the same thing here. Proof's in the pudding, guys. That platformengineering.org has 200,000 to 300,000 members. PlatformCon, their virtual and in-person event, they're expecting 40,000 people signing up for it. Platform Engineering in KubeCon next week on Tuesday, 0 Day, is the biggest single satellite conference going on. Platform engineering certification and training launched by CNCF and a separate one from platformengineering.org through the roof. The market is responding. It's clearly aimed at enterprise, right? You may not need this if you're not at that large team level, but
I'm gonna back up support what Guy was saying is, coding is a spectrum, right? There's developing software applications, etc. But is a bash shell, is a shell script code? Yeah. Is writing some Python, Perl, or whatever to automate something? That's coding. So yeah, I mean, sysadmins, people in operations, people in cloud environments, running the cloud. Some people don't do that, but very much there isn't as much a separation of, oh, that's not coding. This is writing. You have to write in C++ to be coding. No, I mean, there's a lot of scripting is what we would consider coding today.
I don't know if I would exclude, somebody with a graphical tool managing a VMware installation. That's a platform and that's engineering, right?
Developing an agent, is that coding? Well, is it if it's an operations or sysadmin or platform engineer to do it?
what about if I have the AI do the scripting or coding?
And it's a developer too.
Yeah, well, hopefully you're taking a look at it and
But you know what? So
validating
Gene Kim, Phoenix Project, celebrity in the DevOps thing. I don't know if you guys follow him or Gene's a great guy. You should follow him. But, he's on this mission these days of he fancies himself a coder. He's never coded. Gene was never a coder. Gene's more of a business guy. But he's using AI and he's generating code. He does it, to your point. He doesn't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Okay. So hold on. So are you saying vibe coding is coming to platform engineering? Is that what you're saying?
I think
great.
Vibe coding's coming.
That sounds
everywhere.
great.
Good vibrations. We don't have anyone from California. We're finally talking about good vibrations, and we don't have one of our California people on.
Pull out that guitar, Mitch.
Yeah, pull it up. Let me hear you say.
Start doing the Beach Boys.
Yeah, a little Beach Boy.
Yeah.
Help me, Rhonda. Anyway, let's take a break on this one because we ran a little over. We're going to be back with our next block. And is the cloud Guy? You've already touched on this. Is the struggle real in cloud? You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey folks, we're back and we're talking about cloud computing to kind of complete the trifecta here a little bit. One of the issues that we're starting to see out there is that the number of workloads in the cloud has finally kind of moved above that 50% mark as a percentage of the total, at least according to a latest report from Flexera that you can find on Techstrong ITSM, soon to be techstrong.it. And it kind of suggests that we're now struggling with managing all those workloads, optimizing them. People are very concerned about the cost of the cloud. And we're also still struggling with how to provision this stuff. There's a separate report from Spacelift talking about how it might take people in some instances a week still to provision cloud infrastructure by the time they get all the processes done and everything nailed down. Camberly, we've been playing around now with cloud for a decade or more, and it feels like we're kind of still wrapping our arms around this thing. So where are we on this particular adventure, and why does it seem like it's still more difficult than it should be?
Well, about 2 years ago, as I think is when we started the trending back from taking a look at saying I'm cloud first with a lot of with companies to the point that I'm doing a very, very thoughtful process of where do I place a particular workload. And that has continued this year, especially as they're looking at what the budgets look like, et cetera. What we've seen all along is that once you get to a very stable application, that stable application is probably best served and operated on-prem. Because I don't need to take the advantage of some of the things that the cloud brings me, which is a lot of flexibility, et cetera. So there's some cost equations there. And then if you add in the pressures that IT is feeling today, the CIO is feeling today, where their budgets continue to be pinched, and they're even pinched more now because of the AI initiatives. So I've taken budgets that used to go into whatever I'm doing, and I'm moving it into AI because we've got to go out that way. So the other areas have got to be looked at, very with scrutiny to say, where can I save some money in order to maintain? So some of those transitions and changes that are going on in terms of where I place my application, what I'm using those applications are becoming part of all those pressures. And then you have there's some big case studies that people are out there that have talked about how they've saved millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars by bringing their applications back on-prem. And so that's going to cause people to say, wait a second, should I be doing this as well, and examining what decisions they're making. So I think that's part of it. The last thing I'll mention is that the second half, how long it takes you to provision up in the cloud. If you're setting up a well-architected environment that has got high availability, it's not dependent on one zone of whatever, because we've all seen the stuff go down and you're out for whatever, you have to set up a very well orchestrated or architected environment. That takes time to do. And it's not just a pure cookie cutter kind of process, maybe, that some people think it is. So that takes time to set up. And if all you're doing is DevOps, sorry, Mitch, all you're doing is DevOps and writing code, and I don't need to worry about high availability, et cetera, or data protection or some of those other things, yeah, I'm going to be up and going. But if I'm delivering a transactional system, different game.
I have some thoughts on this one. So, Camberly, I think you're 100% right. Talking about how quickly you could stand up an instance really depends on what you're standing up, your experience level of standing up, what your requirements are, and all of that, and that's going to vary. Your mileage varies. When it comes to cloud costs, I think there's two different kind of scenarios. One is, am I being wasteful with my cloud usage? Am I being a resource pig? Am I not shutting down an instance when I'm done with it? Am I adding more capacity than I really need and not bringing it back down? Am I just blowing the balloon up and never shrinking it back? That's the kind of thing that I think FinOps can really help with and try to show you where you're throwing money out the window. The other issue, though, is, when are you too big for the cloud? I remember about 12 years ago, I was at the Boulderado Hotel, downtown Boulder. I know both of you know that. Mike probably knows it too. It was a Foundry portfolio in Techstrong. Not Techstrong. We're Techstrong. Techstars portfolio conference. It was one of the first times I spoke about DevOps. With Brad Feld was there, and it was actually the genesis of what became DevOps.com. But Mitch, you remember Rally Software? Camberly, you probably do too, from Boulder Rally.
I knew the executives there. Yeah.
Yep. So the CTO, he was the original CTO at Rally. Mm-hmm. He got up, and this was 12 years ago. He got up and gave a presentation on exactly when the dollar point was and compute point was where it didn't pay to use the cloud, that you were better off private data centering it. You're laughing, Cam. Do you think he was wrong or what?
No, I mean, we can see that. I mean, it depends upon, or you're talking about size of company. I don't know about that.
No, it wasn't size of company. It was size of cloud spend. and how big your infrastructure.
For,
you
for
know,
well,
your
yeah, for a
footprint
workload
was.
or for a
Right, what your footprint, what your
Yeah.
cloud footprint was,
Yeah.
and when it would pay to move back into a private data center situation.
And I would assume that there are some certain characteristics, not just a size situation that goes along with that. It may be kind of like, so one of the areas that they haven't found a whole lot of financial efficiency is in the data storage side of the house. That's one of that's the the bucket that keeps on growing, that never shrinks, and that Amazon keeps pounding over the head, telling us here are all the things you can do to make yourself more efficient. Nobody does. Uh, so I mean,
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's been on my mind, Camberly. So that is a really decisive factor, is where the data is. It is enormously expensive to move data from one place to another now, because of not just how big it is, but because it's in mixed formats. Usually there's every given application, well, not everyone, but many applications, especially enterprise applications, use a lot of different data sources. There's an architecture and so on. For years, I think the cloud service providers made it easy to bring the data in, and then they've made it hard to take the data out. And so that is a really important cost factor. The kinds of charts you're talking about, I used to see them too, I think, that you're talking about, I used to see them too, I think refer to a large degree on how much it costs to run, power, host, manage, and all those, total cost of running this infrastructure, but it does not take account of data gravity or of the need to. Right now, there's just this really big movement to bring the processing next to the data instead of trying to bring the data next to the processing. The good news is these on-prem environments, wherever it is now, as we were just saying in the last segment, is cloud. Almost always cloud in one way or another. And the cloud service providers are providing on-prem extensions of their cloud environments, and vice versa. I mean, Oracle's been doing this really interesting work lately, because that's like a major data, repository in most enterprises, as well as enterprise applications and so forth. So they are putting infrastructure into all three of the big clouds, so that you can access your Oracle from those clouds, and then vice versa, you can access those cloud services and back. So that is almost the window out, if you ask me. But, as far as cost and usage, ballooning, I confess to being a little uncertain. I feel like we're just back in the old days of runaway costs and bloat. I think FinOps is very much a way out of it. It's just poorly adopted.
It's cloud hygiene is what, that's a cloud hygiene problem to me, which
I
is
think
different.
you're trying to apply rational thought to irrational behavior. The irrational behavior is a bunch of CIOs thought it would be cool to say cloud only, and then they got rid of all these data centers and colo facilities because that was fashionable. And then they were surprised when developers showed up, much like drunks at an open bar, and said, look at all this compute that we can use. And they didn't really think much about exactly how much that cost, because to them it was free. So I think we're just kind of paying the bill finally for behavior that we incentivized in reasons that have nothing to do with logic.
it's also difficult to turn it off. So I mean, my experience, little itty bitty company, my company here, and that we were using the cloud for doing a lot of things, and turning things off was difficult. And so when you come to the FinOps, they're doing this analysis. Now I got to go and figure out what that is. So maybe getting back to the first conversation we had, can AI do the business analytics on the FinOps?
I did not want to be the one to say AI, but yes.
No, but
and can it also make it worse with
then
agents
you have
going
an
AI
AI agent that shuts down instances
or
and
sets
does
up
these things,
sets
or
up,
sets them up,
like
both ways. But I think that's the future. I do think that's a way out of that.
All I got to say is my work is done here, and I'm happy when a theme comes together.
I want to take what you said, Mike, kind of a step further. And, I appreciate you. You must have been in one of our hackathons talking about all the drunken state developers. But anyway, that's another.
No, it wasn't the developers showing up drunks. It was the drunks showing up.
It was the platform engineers. They're on the spectrum anyway.
Those platform engineers. No, it's if a resource is there, I'll use it, right? Oh, spin up another server, spin up another whatever. If I can do that, it doesn't cost me anything. There's also, just like, the resource itself, the compute. Do I build an application that's high performance? Let me take, for example, should I build it in Python? Or maybe I should build it in Rust, because I can build a high performance application. It's not as kind of flexible and easy to use as Python, but maybe I should do things a little bit differently for so high performance applications to get the most efficient use out of what we're creating. So there's the resource itself, and then there's the way we use it. To Camberly's point about data, right? If there's a 2 terabyte drive, we'll fill it up with 1.99 terabytes. Same thing for CPU.
And then we'll upgrade the drives.
Same thing with my clothes closet. There you go.
You
It
said
will
it.
fill up. Meet the space, right?
You said it. All right, guys. It's been a great.
I hear somebody calling beer here. I gotta go.
You got to go get hot dog here. Anyway, Mike, enjoy the game. Good luck to our Yankees. Mitch, Camberly, enjoy the beautiful weather out in Colorado. Guy, it's a pleasure having you here.
Pleasure being here.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. As a reminder, as always, Techstrong Gang is followed by the rest of our great Techstrong TV lineup for today. So stay tuned to this channel if you're watching it streaming today. If not, you can find Techstrong Gang as well as 8,000 odd other videos on techstrong.tv or our Techstrong TV YouTube channel. And soon coming to a TV near you on our Techstrong TV OTT channel. But until, I guess, tomorrow, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong Gang. Have a great day, everyone. We're out.